The most dangerous moment for the person who betrayed you is not when you discover the truth, but when you stop begging for it. The morning Daniel Carter found the divorce papers on the kitchen table began like every other ordinary day of his carefully managed life. Sunlight filtered through the large windows of the house Emily had decorated years earlier when their marriage still felt hopeful and full of promise. Daniel walked into the kitchen, half distracted by emails on his phone, expecting coffee, breakfast, and the quiet presence of a wife who had always been there, supporting him without demanding recognition. Instead, he stopped abruptly when he noticed the envelope resting beside his cup. His name was written across the front in Emily's neat handwriting. For a moment, he assumed it was some kind of document she needed him to review for taxes or business matters. Daniel opened the envelope casually, but the moment his eyes reached the bold word, divorce, his expression changed completely. Confusion flashed first, then irritation, and finally a flicker of something he had not experienced in years, uncertainty. Emily stood near the living room window, watching the morning light stretch across the floor as if she had been waiting for this exact moment. She looked calm, almost peaceful, which somehow unsettled Daniel even more. "This is some kind of joke, right?" he asked, forcing a laugh that sounded weaker than he expected. Emily turned slowly, meeting his eyes with a steady composure he had never seen before. "No, Daniel," she replied quietly, "it is not a joke." The simplicity of her answer erased the illusion that this was just an emotional reaction or a temporary argument. Daniel placed the papers down on the table, trying to regain the confident authority he carried into every business negotiation. "You are overreacting," he said dismissively. "We can talk about whatever problem you think we have." Emily studied his face for a long, silent moment, realizing how familiar his tactics were, minimizing the situation, controlling the narrative, making her doubt her own judgment. For years, she might have accepted that tone, but something inside her had already changed. "There is no problem to discuss," she replied calmly. "You made your choices, and now I'm making mine." Daniel's irritation sharpened into anger because he was used to solving problems through persuasion, pressure, or charm. "What choices are you talking about?" he demanded. Emily did not shout or accuse him with emotional drama. Instead, she walked toward the table, opened his laptop, and quietly displayed the same messages she had discovered days earlier. The screen filled with photographs, affectionate words, and travel plans Daniel had carefully hidden. The color drained from his face as realization hit him that his secret life was no longer hidden. Emily closed the laptop gently, as if sealing the final chapter of their marriage. "I know about Victoria," she said simply. The silence that followed was heavy enough to suffocate every excuse Daniel had prepared in his mind. For the first time in years, he looked genuinely unsettled, because the woman standing in front of him was not the predictable partner he believed he understood. "I can explain," he began quickly, but Emily raised her hand, stopping him before the words could continue. "I am not interested in explanations," she said softly. "Explanations are usually just stories people tell to make betrayal sound smaller." Daniel tried to shift the conversation, using the same persuasive confidence that had helped him build his company. "Emily, listen, you are letting emotions ruin something important, our life, our home, everything we built together." She shook her head slightly, not with anger, but with clarity. "We built it together," she corrected, "but you destroyed it alone." Her calm certainty made Daniel feel strangely powerless, because arguments require two people fighting, and Emily had already stepped beyond that stage. After several tense minutes, Daniel grabbed his jacket and left the house, convinced she would eventually calm down and reconsider. In his mind, Emily had always depended on him emotionally, financially, and socially. He believed the divorce papers were just a dramatic gesture that would disappear once reality set in. What Daniel did not realize was that Emily had already begun constructing an entirely new life beyond the boundaries of their marriage. Over the next weeks, she quietly moved into a small but elegant apartment in the city, far away from the suburban house that once symbolized stability. The new space was not large, but it carried a sense of freedom that Emily had not felt in years. She filled the apartment with sketches, color palettes, and architectural magazines, slowly transforming the living room into a creative workspace where her imagination could expand again. Each morning, she woke with a clear purpose, researching clients, contacting design firms, and presenting the portfolio she had carefully prepared. At first, the responses were cautious, because many people remembered her only as Daniel Carter's supportive wife rather than an independent professional, but the quality of her ideas quickly changed those perceptions. Emily's designs were bold, sophisticated, and emotionally expressive, reflecting years of silent observation while she organized events and properties for Daniel's company. One particular project, designing the interior of a luxury boutique hotel, caught the attention of a prominent developer who was impressed by her creativity and professionalism. The opportunity was risky because Emily had not led a project of that scale before, but she accepted the challenge without hesitation. Meanwhile, Daniel continued living his usual routine, unaware that Emily's transformation was gaining momentum. He assumed Emily would eventually call him, asking for financial support or reconciliation, because in his mind, she had never proven capable of standing independently. Instead, weeks passed without a single request or message from her. That silence slowly began to disturb him in ways he could not easily explain. Daniel attempted to distract himself with work, meetings, investor presentations, and increasingly frequent evenings with Victoria, who believed their relationship would now become permanent. Yet something about Emily's quiet departure unsettled him far more than an emotional confrontation ever could. He expected tears, anger, desperation, anything that would confirm she still depended on him, but Emily had left with dignity and determination, creating a silence that forced Daniel to question assumptions he had never challenged before. Late one evening, while reviewing company reports, Daniel noticed something unexpected. A design proposal circulating among investors for a prestigious hotel project carried a familiar name at the bottom of the document: Emily Carter, lead interior designer. At first, he assumed it was coincidence, but as he studied the detailed plans and sophisticated concepts, he realized the work was undeniably hers. The same creative instinct he once admired when she decorated their home had evolved into something far more impressive. For the first time, Daniel felt an unfamiliar emotion creeping into his thoughts. Not anger, not guilt, but a quiet, uncomfortable realization. The woman he betrayed was not disappearing from his life. She was rising beyond it, and the distance between them was growing larger every day.